Hot water, lemon, honey, and a drop of whiskey.
Yeah, but they're meant to be the tea bag. It's meant to be one of the ingredients in the medication they're trying out for Corona.
Oh, good evening. Oh, hello. My name is.
Good evening.
Good evening. I need to
I'll talk kind of long in another minute.
We're here early waiting for the rabbi.
Yeah, we'd like to be early.
Yet. We can all talk to each other for a few minutes. Catch up on the
Tally's not here yet. We can't start.
What's the news in the world?
How are you feeling, Rabbi Yehuda? You weren't feeling well a few days ago.
It's not much better, so. So what that for doing that?
Moish, you look very excited.
Shabbos Daf Yutes.
Boy, tell the girls they can't learn Gemara.
Right. Okay. Oh, I just put it on speakerphone. Anybody can get? It's totally on. It's totally on yet.
Not yet.
No.
On. I'm just curious if you can hear to Kulaloshon. Who can check?
I'll check.
Maybe you had the Stern's phone number. I can text him if you can.
I'm checking Kolosha now.
All right, very good. How is everybody?
We're all good. We're all good.
All good.
It's unreal world. No, the question is on now. Maybe I can ask you the Stern every night to text me. Maybe I can ask him now. You're the Stern, if you're listening now, can you just text me? If you can hear the show.
Choice, try again. Press
Not
the
working.
line you'd like to listen to. Live Shiurim, press star.
Oh,
English.
no.
For live Shiurim in Hebrew, press 1. Rav David Khan, halacha for late.
Okay, it's too bad.
Incorrect choice, try again. Press the line you'd like to listen to.
Maybe
For
press
live
2
Shiurim in
fingers.
Hebrew, Rav
Okay,
David
too
Khan,
bad.
halacha for ladies. Press 28. Steinberg.
Oh,
Shabbos 51. Press.
hello? Can you hear me?
Listening to the Shiur of
Sorry.
Yehuda Steinberg.
Basically, you're up to your 51 now. That's why I couldn't find it.
Where's Tolly? Can you hear me?
Have you heard of Tolly says it's
Yeah, I can
fine?
hear you. You're
Oh,
on.
right, very good. Okay.
For some reason, you're on option 51 now.
Right, we'll start with Dafi Testament Aleph. Okay. Let's see. If everybody, I hope everybody's okay. It's just a suggestion to have a shiur, to have a shiur both Friday and Motzei Shabbos. The idea is that to get a little bit further ahead for Pesach. If people not as no good, I was only suggesting it. If it suits people, fine. If not, just let me know. Okay, or let Tolly know. We're up to Dafi Testament Aleph, about 50 lines from the top. Tonu Rabbanon. In the Shalchin Igeres Biad Nochi, not allowed to send a letter in the hand of a goya. The Shabbos and we can create it going. Unless you fix with them a price. When you fix with them a price, then what happens is he's not your shliach. He's working for himself. It means if you say to him, this is how much you're going to get paid, whatever happens, it's much better than if you pay him per hour. He has to reach his house before Shabbos. Or we said that he has to get to a home which is nearest to the wall, meaning the first home in the city. If he was fixed the price, why can't he do even through Shabbos? The second half of the price has to be read, and if he did not do Ketzitza, that's the halacha. The Reisha says Ein Meshalchet, which is mashma they're never allowed to send ever. How could you say that if it's Kotzatz, it's mutter? But you said in the Reisha, that when it's not Kotzatz, it's always forbidden. So how can you say that in low kotzat b'shamay permitted if you can get home? Low kasham. Hold to kavir be davo b'masa or the low kavir be davo b'masa. Davo means the ruler, the person in charge. In those days, most of the letters that people sent but always to the governor, to the council, etc. Even nowadays, we're busy sending letters to HMRC and things like that. So those days, that's when you sent a letter, that's usually where you sent it to. Beidava means the ruler. So therefore, the vice is saying that if the ruler always lives in the same spot, therefore the postman will surely know how far he needs to travel to get there in time for Shabbos. And therefore, if it is loy kotzat, it is permitted as long as he can get there. But if the ruler moves around, is not always fixed in the same town, then even in a situation where he can get there before Shabbos, it's still forbidden. Why is it forbidden? Because what happens is you may end up traveling even on Shabbos because he thinks to himself, I can get there before Shabbos. And then when he gets there, he finds the ruler's not there. And those days, the job of the postman was to follow up. You had to get the letter all the way to wherever it was meant for. So therefore, in the ratio it says, Ein Shalchin, unless it's kotzat, it's referring to you're never allowed to. Even if you're going to get there to the house, it's forbidden. The reason being because the person is not always stationary, he moves around. So yesterday I wanted to mention the Fag's Tshuva, the Machzeh Eliyahu. He's got a whole interesting Tshuva. How come people can send a first-class letter on Friday? So today, Baruch Hashem, I managed to get hold of the Sefer, and he gives there a nice, interesting Tshuva. It's a Machzeh Eliyahu, Chilek Aleph, Siman Lamed Vav. And what he says is interesting combination of 4 different pieces of logic as to why it is that you're allowed to send a letter first class on Friday afternoon. Think about it. If you're living, let's say, in Gateshead, and you send a letter to Manchester, send it first class a couple of hours before Shabbos comes in, legally the postman is obligated to bring it to the house by the next day, as long as you post it before the last collection. So therefore you're asking the which is forbidden. So he gives a combination of 4 different reasons why they're mutter. Anybody want to suggest any reason, logic?
He's going anyway, the postman.
Very good. Who said that? I didn't hear.
Me, Benny. My video's off tonight.
Okay, it doesn't matter. Anyway, you really can't see. You're not even in the box. But anyway,
my video's off.
Very good. He says it's ma'ba b'shurin. When a goy does a malacha for other reasons, therefore all you're asking is to increase. That's already a very big heter. That's one of the 4 reasons. Anybody wants just another one of the 4 reasons why you're allowed to send a letter first class Friday afternoon? So he said, there's another interesting halacha. If you ever have to ask a goy, if you ask a goy to ask another goy, that's much better. It's called amira le'amira. Ask a goy to ask another goy to do a malacha. When you post a letter, it's not the same goy doing the whole job. It's one goy passes on to the next.
If he's going to come to your house anyway, if he's going to come to your house anyway with post, why is that?
Oh, that's what Benny was saying. That's Maba B'Shur. He's anyway doing the job. So you're only increasing their carryings. Therefore, that's why it's a heter. Because it's Maba B'Shur. It's increasing the job. You're right. That's the first heter.
How did you know he was going to come to your house?
You can deny the fact that generally the person has other letters to post. Okay, each saw by itself. This is Amir Lamir, one goes to another. And this is another interesting logic. Is like this. I thought you might guess it. The post box, what rishus is it?
4
tefachim by 4, 10 tefachim high.
Caramelous.
It's 4 by 4. It's 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim, 10 tefachim high. Your house.
The post box where? The post box on the corner of the street, or your post box at home?
I meant the post box in the corner of the street.
Yeah.
So it's just sayachit. It's 4 by 4 by 10 tefachim high.
The letter's been taken from there on Friday.
Right. But therefore he says that taking from Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaYochid, even through Rishus HaRabim, is not awesome in our Torah, it's only awesome to Rabbanon. That means from Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaYochid, he doesn't need to stop on the way. In theory, if he doesn't stop the whole way, he won't be over Issa D'Oraisa, only Issa D'Rabbanan. If I carry from my house to your house on Shabbos, go through Rishus HaRabim without stopping, it's only Issa D'Rabbanan. And finally, he says, interesting, brings a Prima Godim. Already in those days there was post, is that the legal obligation, it's interesting, is not to the one who posts the letter. The legal obligation is the postman is obligated to work for the government. It's not that he's working for you, he's working for the government. So for 4 different hetem are allowed to post a letter. It's Ma'ba B'Shurim, it's Amir La'amir, it's Shusayachid, which is only to Rabbanon. And finally, the 4th heter is that he's working for the government, not for you.
What's the difference who he's working for?
No, so you're not asking him to do the job. He's doing the job for the government, not for you.
Not for my letter. He might not be working.
That's a side point. Who is he doing the job for? Not for me. He's doing it.
That would be the difference between Amazon and Royal Mail. Royal Mail, he's supposed to walk down your street every day because he's got post for the houses. Whereas Amazon, he's coming to yours only if somebody on your street actually ordered something.
And Amazon would be worse. Yeah. The Amazon would be worse, yes. Right. We're middle of your testament with Aleph. It's not allowed to go on a boat 3 days before Shabbos. Less than 3 days before Shabbos. Why not? What's wrong with going on a boat on Shabbos?
You're going to feel sick on Shabbos.
Oh, very good. The Rif says that reason. Traveling is very sickening. It's a lack of Eineg Shabbos. That's what the Rif says. I wouldn't have said it's with logic. Another reason the Rishonim say is we're talking about a very shallow river, less than 10 tefachim, so you're traveling out of the Tchum.
Are you not going to make a raft?
You're sitting on the boat. So that's one other reason. There are 3 reasons brought down in the Rishonim. The 3 reasons in the Rishonim are as follows. One is Eineg Shabbos is sickening to go on the boat. Another reason is going out of the Tchum, but it's only if the river bed is less than 10 tefachim deep. If it's more than 10 tefachim, then you're out, Shus B'Tor, it's okay. Finally, boats would often sink. Therefore, people would often have to do a malacha on Shabbos to save themselves from drowning. So
if it's the Chum problem, then it should be any day before Shabbos. Why only 3?
Once you are 3 days before, you're considered to be already in the journey. Chazal allowed it. Once you start 3 days before. But again, another third reason was because you might come to the malacha. Oh, that's why, for example, Chatchil is brought down in the poskim. Again, a person has to take this very carefully, that you shouldn't do a non-necessary operation, let's say on Erev Shabbos. Why? Because let's say a person does an operation, and then Shabbos, usually after operations, what happens is they need to do malachas on Shabbos to heal the person. So here, this is one of the makuras to forbid it. Is according to one of the Rishonim, the reason why we don't travel on a boat is because the boat used to sink, and they would do malachas on Shabbos to extricate themselves from drowning.
According to the reason of Oneg Shabbos, can you go on a comfortable yacht made for comfort and luxury?
Once Chazal made the Issa D'Rabbanan of traveling on a ship, we're trying to establish why Chazal made the Issa. Once they made the Issa, I don't think there's low plug. Because all these reasons only do D'Rabbanans, therefore for a mitzvah it's permitted. You have to make an agreement with him. You're fixed with him, that he should stop traveling on Shabbos. But it doesn't matter if he doesn't stop the Rebbe. When it's not necessary, you don't even have to make an agreement that he should stop. You can travel on Shabbos. Why? Because it's less than a day's journey. Already there were more mentions, though, that a person shouldn't travel on a journey on Friday afternoon, even Friday morning if it's a long journey. But here we're talking about a short journey, it's mutter. You shouldn't start a war less than 3 days before Shabbos. If you started, you don't stop. Until the town is captured, conquered, until you take down the walls. Even on Shabbos. Even on Shabbos. That means if you start a war, you continue it on Shabbos. You can't stop fighting on Shabbos. The minhag was that they would take their clothes, which were white, to be washed 3 days before Shabbos. Why 3 days before Shabbos? Anybody remember?
Takes a long time.
Very good. White clothes take a very long time to wash. So the Gemara says, Tanya, it's harder to wash white clothes than colored clothes. He gave a colored item of clothing to a washer person. How much do you want me to pay you? I'll charge you the same as I always charge you for the white clothes. Abaya said to this washing person, the Chachamim already came before you, they preceded you, and they warned that it's not true. You don't pay for a white piece of clothing the same as you pay for a colored item. Why not? Because white clothing is much harder, so you can't expect to get the same price. Isn't
that halacha not to do washing on a Friday?
Now that you say it, it rings a bell, but it's not from this Gemara as far as I understand, because this Gemara is saying that you're allowed to. I'd have to check it up. It's good to remind you I'll check it up. But, well, they're not allowed to wash on Friday. I don't remember. Maybe there's such a minute, but I don't know. What?
Isn't it? There's the thing to washing on Thursday and bake challahs on Friday, isn't it?
Maybe because washing takes a long time. You want to get into
it takes time. Never into Shabbos, yeah.
Well, I did Mr. Burr, I think.
Yeah, we did.
I think Mr. Burr said it.
No, that's because people want fresh challahs on Friday. They don't want them baked on Thursday.
Right.
Fair enough.
So washing. Oh, baker should know. It's his winter. Okay. Omar Abai, had my deal on one of the cats. If you give the item of clothing to the washing person, the mishkan you should give it to the measurement. The mishkan you should measure when you get it back. The itofe, if it becomes bigger, after the day the washing person ruined it, the modche, he stretched it out and stretched your clothing. The bodse, and if it got shorter after they ruined it, the kavtse shrunk through the hot water. Whenever you give your clothing for washing, you should measure it before you give it in and measure it when you get it back, because often they would ruin it either by stretching it or by, what's opposite of stretching it? By
shrinking it.
Shrinking. Very good. Shrinking it by not doing it carefully. So you should measure it both times, because if he's ruined it, you can get your money back. You get part of your money back. So now going back to that story where a person took his olives and grapes and crushed them a little bit by standing on them, and then he's going to put beams on them. And halachas and Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel both agree that you're allowed to do it. You're allowed to put the beams on them on Friday, even though it will continue to drip the entire Shabbos. And what's the reason it's permitted? Because since it started, it's okay. So why did it not go so? It says, they forbade it to do it Friday when it's before dark. So there's no chatos. Why is there no chatos? Because since you've already crushed the grapes by standing on them or breaking them, so therefore all you're going to do now is a little bit of squeeze them further, and that's permitted. So the Gemara says that's not permitted. Sorry, it's also with Rabbanon. But in Torah, it's not also. Therefore, they didn't forbid it on Friday afternoon. It says, well, man, anything which happens by itself is okay. There's no issa d'oraisa. Omar v'yisi b'abchanina, Rabbi Shmoli, the Tanan, hashum, garlic, v'haboisa, that's grapes that have not been completely ripe, v'amelilois, grains which are not completely ripe as well. Shaviska, that you crush them in boidyong. What they used to do is they used to crush these non-ripe grapes or grain or garlic, and then they would use it as a dip. So now what you used to do is used to viska is to crush, and then you're allowed to then let them be weighed down after darkness and let it then carry on. Top of your Testament base, you're not allowed to. Why? Because if you carry it on after Shabbos, that's also awesome. Omar Rabbeloz Omar Rabbeloz he. So here Rashi, and again, this is something which one day, Mitzvah Shem, we'll have a chart, because many times we say Rabbi Elazar says it's Rabbi Elazar. What's going on? He's saying it's himself. The answer is you're just smiling. One day we'll get it. Actually, somebody showed, who is it? Yehuda Steinberg had a very nice chart. I'm trying to get hold of it. Basically, there's Rabbi Elazar the Tana, and there's Rabbi Elazar the Amoyer. It's interesting, Rashi himself obviously felt that some people don't know it, because Rashi himself is the second and third Rashi on the page. Rabbi Elazar says Rabbi Elazar ben Pados, that's the Amoyer. And Rabbi Elazar is Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua. There were two different Rabbi Elazar. They lived hundreds of years apart. One was a friend of a contemporary of Rabbi Yochanan, and one was a contemporary, it was a Talmud of Rabbi Akiva. So many years apart. So therefore, the Rabbi Elazar the Amoyer says our Mishnah, which permits min haTorah, something which is already being crushed, is Rabbi Elazar the Tanahi. There's nan chalos vash. I don't remember ever going to a beehive. It seems if you go to a beehive, once the bees have gone, there's like these chalos, like bread of honey, where it's basically wax with honey inside it. And what you have to do is you have to extract the honey from the wax. So Shaviskon Be'ev Shabbos, you crush them on Friday, v'yotzu ma'atzmo, and then on Shabbos they leak themselves also. Have you got a chart, Ben, of the Tanam Amorim? It's a very complicated one, isn't it? It's one of these really complicated ones, not one. Yeah, it didn't. It's too detailed. You have to get it. Again, so the Gemara says like this. This is a very, very important halacha, by the way. If you've got a bunch of grapes sitting on your plate, and for some reason they start oozing out juice, you're forbidden to drink that juice on Shabbos. Anybody know why? Why can't you?
No.
You're right, it could be a shayla of nerd, but that's not the main reason. Why is it?
You might come to squeeze.
Oh, very good. You might come to squeeze. Once you enjoyed the juice so much, and wow, that was really good grape juice. What I'll do is, I'll go and squeeze them more. But they only forbade it with grapes and olives, not with other fruit, because grapes and olives is doing rice. So other fruit should do upon, like a cucumber, it doesn't matter, or something else, a date or something. So therefore, he says that honey, which on Shabbos starts coming out, it is the Tanakh says asa bloza matir. Why is a bloza matir? Is a vad of bloza holds that things that come out by themselves is not deraisa. Why didn't he say? That means again, our Mishnah tells us. Beishama Beis Hillel both agree that if you crush it on Friday and on Shabbos you're just pressing on it. That means on Friday you put something to press on it that it should continue pressing the entire Shabbos. That's okay. Even according to Beis Shammai, who will hold that you're not allowed to kill him to do a malacha on Shabbos. Says the Gemara, who's the Tana that holds that if you start something on Friday with a weight, you're allowed to continue it on Shabbos? So the Gemara brings a machlokes hameroim. Each one suggests a different Tana is the Tana of our Mishnah. Now the Gemara wants to establish why did each Hameira not suggest a different Tana. So the Gemara says like this. By honey, even after honey is extracted, it's not literally a liquid. People don't treat honey as a liquid. They treat it more as a food. Therefore, it's permitted. This is literally liquid. Since it's liquid, maybe Rabbi Loza forbids it. Rabbi Loza, that I will say to you, we know that the Tana Rabbi Loza holds that when the Rishon came from the Ador, he came and he brought a Masnita in his hands. That what? That he crushed them. Me'ev Shabbos, and they came out on Shabbos. I saw it. So you see that they hold its mutter. Why didn't they hold its mutter? Because he holds that once you've crushed it on Friday, then the fact that it's oozing out on Shabbos is not awesome in that Torah. That means it's not awesome in that Torah to do it. So if you're allowed to drink it, because we're not choshesh, we don't do exer. Since if you were to actually squeeze it further on Shabbos, something else we do upon, we allow you to drink the juice because that's only exer. Why didn't he want to say the Tana of our Mishnah is like Beis Chanina, like Beis Chanina said that it's Rabbi Shmuel that talks about Viska. So Mo says, where you haven't yet done dicha, that means you haven't even started the process. That means you haven't squeezed them. What's a good word in English for dicha? Anybody got a good translation for dicha? Dicha is pressing or
pounding.
Pounding. That's a good word. If you haven't pounded them, the Kulamale Pligi, everybody agrees that what? That it is also on Shabbos. Ki Pligi Buchson Shchika, where it's missing, what's Shchika? Grinding.
Mashing.
I think grinding is better. Mashing, okay. I would say grinding is better because you're sheikh the savamonim of the keteris. And then you ground it. Okay. Nami in our Mishnah as well, in our Mishnah we're talking about where they were lacking dicha, they hadn't yet been pounded. So therefore, since they hadn't been pounded, therefore everybody agrees it's forbidden. And therefore the only one who agrees, says it's mutter, is the Rabbi Loza of the Mishnah that says that by honey it's okay. Rabbi Shmuel, they were passing like Rabbi Shmuel, that what? That Rabbi Shmuel holds that you're allowed to finish it b'shatech shach. That means if something is crushed on Friday and you're just putting a weight on it on Friday afternoon that you should continue squeezing out, that is permitted. Now, for some reason, the Gemara now brings a whole sugya of muktzah. Rashi says, because we talk about oils, we continue talking about oil. Others shouldn't go different pshatim. One thing, we're going to come to it much more at a later stage. We're not going to talk about it a lot now. There's a fundamental machlekes in Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon regarding if yesh muktzah or ein muktzah. Is there such thing as muktzah or not? We pass in like Rabbi Shimon that there's no muktzah. Oh, you get to what you talk about. How can you say there's no muktzah? Open up Orchos Shabbos and you've got a third of a volume only about Orchos muktzah. There's hundreds of svarim. The answer is that everybody agrees that there's certain things are muktzah and certain things are not muktzah. Rabbi Yehuda had a much more stringent outlook, and this is going to be a big topic later. Rabbi Yehuda held that many, many more things are muktzah. Rabbi Shimon held much less things are muktzah. We hold like Rabbi Shimon that generally there's no muktzah unless somebody really set it aside. It's not considered muktzah. So these are different things which people sometimes set aside. Shemen shel badodim, oil of the presses. What would happen is in the corner of the presses, then what would happen is there would be bits of oil left around the room. And that oil, the one who used to use the press would always generously give it to the owner of the press as like a tip for using the press. Besides for payment, you'd also give him that oil. Machzolos or mats, which they used to put over the press. Rav Osa, Rav forbade it, because he held that it was muktzah. The Shmuel Shori, the Shmuel permitted it, he held it's not muktzah, it's not set aside. And he karched the zuzi, these mats, which they used to cover the ships with, and they were doubled mats. Because they were doubled, they were called zuzi. Zuzi comes from the word zug, which is a pair. They were made like a tent. They were made like a tent. So therefore, these mats, Rav Osa v'Shmuel Shori, Rav forbade it and Shmuel permitted it. Omar Nachman is the chelva goat, which is set aside for milking. V'rochel the gizosa, the sheep for shearing. The tanagrilis the b'tzosa. A chicken for its eggs. V'teru de radio, and the ox, which is set aside for plowing. The tamu de iska, and dates, which are set aside for selling. Rav Osa v'Shmuel Omar Mutter. The Komiflagi were put to Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, they were arguing machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon.
You have to physically set them aside.
Oh, that the Gemara discussed later. It's not that you physically set aside. In your mind, you think to yourself, this is what I want to do with these things. That I've written a couple of svarim, one on Eicha. And what happened was, as one Shabbos afternoon, it was Tisha B'Av was on Sunday. So I have a few copies in my house. The shops I also sell from my house. And what happened was, somebody came into my house and said that they bought Shabbos afternoon, Erev Tisha B'Av, wanted to pick one up to read. So I couldn't think of any reason why not. There was a Talmud Chacham was staying by me, and he straight away said, hey, it's also, it's muktzah. So what, a sefer is muktzah? And he was right. A sefer is muktzah. When you've got something at home, which you're setting aside for selling purposes, it is muktzah, even a sefer. Let's say, example, you've got a svarim shop, or let's say, for example, you sell towels from home, right? And you've got a cupboard full of towels. And Shabbos afternoon, you think to yourself, you know what? I need a spare towel, I've got extra guests. If that towel is set aside for, what's the word for it? Normally you sell it, you can't just take it out of your selling cupboard and give it out. It was interesting, I was quite taken aback. When you first said my sefer is muktzah, I was a bit...
Even though you can still be selling, you're not doing any... The towel you wouldn't sell on. The sefer...
Yes, I hear, it's a good point. Nevertheless, when you're planning to sell something, you don't want people to use it because you're scared that the more people use it, eventually people get put off it. I hear, you're right. The one exception is food. If you sell food from home, then even if you sell it, the halacha is, that's one of the things we just mentioned, Tamid de Iska, dates of business, according to Rab, according to Shmuel, it's mutter, we pass like Shmuel. Why is dates okay? The reason is, the Shmuel brings it, is because a person is always attached to his food. And therefore, even a person selling food, he always thinks to himself, the worst case scenario, I'll eat it myself, especially nowadays, where you can't get anything at all in the shops. So therefore, if you're selling things, you don't go to the shop, you ask them for eggs. The shopkeeper have taken the eggs for themselves because they're not selling them anymore. Maybe they take connections on
Would that apply to toilet paper today? Right? So would that apply to toilet paper today?
Nowadays, it could be.
It's also...
Yes, it's a person. Anyway, The Ma'aser, the halacha is it's inside. We'll come to it more. How Talmida was this Talmud Ovi that he passed Bechaltat Argis. The town called Chalta, which was built by a person called Argis, Rab Shimon. Shamti Rav Amnuna put him in the Chem. Fin Rav Rab Shimon Sviolom. I said, well, Ba'ased Rav have. It was the town of Rav. The Hochi, you don't behave or speak in the town of Rav like Shmuel. How do you tell me? Again, it's a bit difficult to understand exactly why it comes here. Let's we'll see. How do you tell me? Chad matzah b'chad mona b'chad matzah b'ab b'chomish money. One saved in 1 keli, one saved in 4 or 5 keli. You can briefly be put to the rapper ba'azavta b'avona, b'chik zab ba'azavta b'avona. The halacha there is that chas v'shalom, if a person has a fire in his house, then the halacha is one place the Mishnah says is allowed to take out enough food to last them for 3 meals. Another place it says that you're allowed to take as much food as you want. And the Gemara asks a stira, 3 meals or as much as you want? The Gemara gives a couple of different answers. One answer is, it depends. If it is in various different kelim, that means if you've got a huge basket and you pile in the food, then it doesn't matter, you can take as much as you want because one tirch of taking out the basket is okay. If you take them in separate baskets, then you're only allowed to take enough for 3 meals. The Gemara there's got machlokas exactly what the correct way to take out the food. So the Gemara here says that one person would save with 1 keli, one would save with a number of kelim, and then tip it all. Even according to Madama that you can take it into take it with a number of kelim. It's only you start off with a number of kelim, but then afterwards you have to tip it all in and fold it all in to one big keli and take it out. So therefore, that's the machlok. We'll see the machlokas there is the machlokas over here as to what's the correct way. And since the Gemara said the Rav and Shmuel argued machlokas Rabbi Yehuda and Shimon, so therefore we bring another machlokas, which is a machlokas Tolo on somebody else. Says the Mishnah: Ein tzoilin bosa botzel ubeitzel ekdeshu tzulu. She's bashed to be boido. You're not allowed to roast meat, onions, and eggs unless they're roasted from Friday. Why? This is the chashash of Shema Yechata B'Gecholim. You may come to stoke the coals. You're not allowed to stoke coals. And that's why we all have a blech. You're not allowed to put bread in the oven when it gets dark. And not like a kind of cake, a thin wafer, on the coals. Only that the bread should get like a kind of crust from Friday. I always get pleasure when Rashi brings a French word which fits in very nicely with the English word. If you look in the second Rashi of our Mishnah, Rashi says Yikmu Kamekrum, crust balaz, crust balaz. It's the exact English word, the crust. Shiyikumu panel. If it's got a crust, then it's okay. If there's no crust, then you're not allowed to. That means if it's going to have a crust, it's okay, but no crust, it is forbidden. If you can see, I'll try to see this picture because it's more about
that means you can warm up your challah.
Oh, your challah's got a crust on. I don't know who asked the question, but the challah usually has a crust on. We're talking about raw dough that hasn't yet got a crust. If it's got a crust from Friday, that's okay. But warming up your challah would be okay. Can you see this picture? Can anybody see it? If you look carefully in the picture, you've got an oven and you've got bread. Now, the bread is stuck onto the wall of the oven and the bottom of the bread faces the fire and the top of the bread faces the wall. It's not the way we bake nowadays, but this is how they used to bake in those days. The reason I mention it is because we'll discuss later what's called up, what's called down. Now, when you bake nowadays, it's very easy. You put the bread in the oven. So the oven, the heat comes from wherever it is, and if the top is top, the bottom is bottom. In the old days, they would stick the bread onto the ceiling. So you could argue that the bread facing the fire is the bottom, or alternatively, you could argue that the bread facing the wall is the bottom. Okay, we'll discuss later. But it's interesting that Rashi uses the English word crust balaz. Okay, so you're not allowed to put the bread in the oven unless it's going to get a crust from Friday afternoon. Once it has a crust, then people are not so tense about the bread getting baked, and they won't come to stoke it on Shabbos. Can you hear me, by the way? Hello?
Yeah, all here.
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Anyway, if there's a crust, then people will not get so scared of it not being toast or getting a thing. So therefore, people won't stoke it. If it's got no crust, people are scared of going to eat raw dough, so then they might come to stoke it. That the lower bread, the lower part of the bread should get crusty. Oh, another picture, if you want to see a nice, beautiful picture. I'm not sure, everybody seems to be disappearing. Oh, very good. Tortilla. Tortilla is, what is that? Is that that's a cake? What's tortilla in English? Tortilla is also kind of cake.
Tortilla.
What?
Tortilla is English.
It's a Spanish bread.
Which is very thin and made on coals.
Very thin, made on coals, yeah.
Oh, yeah, this is how they used to do the common Pesach. They would put the whole animal with all its pieces and hang it and lower it down onto the fire, if you can see it. So, it was a very big fire in the Beis HaMikdash. Why would there be a big fire in the Beis HaMikdash? Rashi tells a bit of length. Let's just look at the picture first. So you're allowed to light it on Friday afternoon. Now, why would there be a big fire in the Beis HaMikdash? Rashi over here for some reason.
After the mikveh.
Oh, Rashi says more than that. Rashi says like this, that Rashi says like this, that the Kohanim had to walk barefoot. Why? Because there wasn't allowed to be a chatzitza between the feet and the Beis HaMikdash. Because just like the klishos, which was Kodesh, there was no hefsek between them and the avodah. There was no hefsek between the floor, which was Kodesh, and the Kohanim. Since they had to walk barefoot, they were very cold, so they'd have a big fire to heat themselves up. So they were allowed to light the fire on Friday afternoon. We'll discuss this. Ubegvulin, we're top of Chof Amud Aleph, in the rest of the world, the borders. If the fire spreads most of it, it's okay. When it comes to, I think coal is the right word, coal shu anything. Again, this whole Mishnah is discussing one halacha. What does it say, Pchamin? Charcoal or coal? Charcoal or char? Charcoal. This was a char. Okay.
Charcoal.
All right. This whole mission is discussing one halacha. The one halacha is that if you light a fire on Friday afternoon, it's very likely that what will happen is people will stoke the fire on Shabbos to make the fire work better. So therefore, it's forbidden to light a fire on Friday afternoon unless the fire is doing so well that there's no chance that you'll come to stoke it on Shabbos. And what happens in this Mishnah is we've got a lot of different categories. For example, when it comes to meat, it says it has to be roasted. When it comes to bread, it has to have a crust. When it comes to the Korban Pesach and the Meduras Beis HaMikdash, the Mishnah permits it. I'm not sure why. We shouldn't know why. They won't explain why. In the normal bonfire, once the fire is spread by the majority of the fire, you're not so nervous. Yehuda says by charcoal, which burns so well, therefore, even if it's only a small amount of fire, you don't need to be choishish. Why not? Because the fire will spread easily. That means charcoal burns very well. You're not likely to have to stoke it. Says the Gemara, the Mishnah says that it has to be roasted. The meat has to be roasted. What's called roasted? Ben Drusoi was a robber, a thief. Because he was a thief, he was always on the run. And because of that, he didn't always have time to cook his meat properly before he ate it. So he used to cook it either a third or half of the standard amount of times that people used to cook it. Once meat is cooked that amount, people can eat it what's called b'di'evad. With difficulty a person can eat it. Therefore, Chazal said, once meat is cooked either a third or half, we're not chayshish, we're not concerned that you might come to stoke it on Shabbos. Why not? Because since you can eat it, it's okay. Once something's been cooked a third or half, you're not a chayshish if a goyf did the rest of the cooking. Why? Because it's already considered edible. You're allowed to put it on the oven, even if it's not been swept or covered with ashes. What they used to do is, when they want to finish with a fire, they would sweep out the coals. Alternatively, they would cover it with a thin layer of ashes that would take away the heat. So normally, to be able to cook something on Shabbos, you have to either gufo ketuma. when something is cooked, you don't need gufa v'ktuma, it is okay. Says the Gemara, so now, we said that it has to have a crust. Rabbi Eliezer says the lower crust. He says tachton heich. Which is the tachton? What is it? Which is it? Heich, which one is it? The gabetano. Do we mean the lower one, meaning the one which faces the wall, which is higher up? Or the lower one which sees the fire. So over here, you've got to over here. Look at this bread again. Rabbi Eliezer says that it has to be the lower bread, the lower part of the bread has to get a crust. What's considered the lower part of the bread? This part, which is touching the roof of the oven, it's lower in the sense that it's further away from the fire, and that's where you're placing it. You're placing it there, so it's the bottom half of the bread. Or lower over here. Which half is called the lower? Says the Gemara. Or the one which is attached to the oven. So therefore, what has to become a crust? There has to be a crust on the area which is touching the tunnel. Rashi says that's a big chumrah. Why? Because when you put bread upside down attached to the ceiling of an oven, then the part which is facing the fire gets crusty much earlier than the part which is the part which is stuck to the wall. So therefore, you have to wait until the part which is stuck to the wall has a crust, kavachim, when the other one has a crust. When the other one has a crust, the part which is stuck to the wall has a crust, then it's okay. Says the Gemara, Mishalshnas Pesach, you're allowed to lower the carbon Pesach. My Tama says the Gemara, they are zvizin. What does zvizin mean? They are hurry, they don't waste their time, they're not lazy. Says, well, if not for that, it would be forbidden. We had yesterday a goat, a young animal, being shoig, being no shoig, whether it's sealed or not sealed. The Gemara mentioned yesterday that there's no issa to roast a young sheep or lamb or goat. Why? Because since it's very delicate meat, when you open it up, the oven, the wind comes and ruins it. So therefore, people will not stoke it on Shabbos. If they're not going to stoke it on Shabbos, so therefore, why did we say that people bring the Korban Pesach or Zvizin? Just say that it's because it's a goat. The Korban Pesach always has to be less than 1 year old. So it's a young sheep or young goat. So therefore, it's sensitive to the wind. The Bible says, Hasam mintach, it's cut into pieces. Hachale mintach, it's not cut into pieces. Here, the Korban Pesach was one massive piece of meat. It was a whole animal. Such a thick piece of meat will not get affected by a little bit of wind. So therefore, there was a chashash that you might come to stoke it. The only reason you're allowed to do the Korban Pesach is because when people did the Korban Pesach, they did it with tremendous zvizus, with tremendous enthusiasm to do the mitzvah right. You're not allowed to make a fire where you live. You're allowed to make a fire in Beis Hamikdash. Even on Shabbos, you should be allowed to light a fire, if that's what the pasuk means. It's coming to permit the limbs and the fats. That means if you shecht an animal on Friday and you didn't manage to burn all the fats, you can burn them on Friday night. That's what Rashi says. Tosfos over here says, of course not. He argued to Rashi at great length. Okay. The Kohanim is reason, meaning that normally when you light a fire, we don't allow you to light a fire on Friday afternoon in case you might come to stoke it on Shabbos. Since Kohanim's reason, we're not choshesh, and therefore we allow you to light it on Friday, even though we're not choshesh that you'll come to stoke it on Shabbos, because Kohanim like to do things right. The fire has to spread. That every piece of wood is caught on fire. That the majority of every piece of wood is on fire. That means if you light a fire Friday afternoon, when every piece of wood, the majority is on flames, then you're allowed to leave it like that for Shabbos because you won't come to stoke it on Shabbos. Where the fire is burning so well that you don't say, let's bring some more twigs and some more wood to burn underneath to make it burn better. The fire is burning so well, you do not need to help it along. The pasuk says, which normal word for lighting a candle is lahadlik. Why do you say that when you light the candles of the menorah, you have to light it in a way that the flame should have its own source of fire. It doesn't need help for the fire to spread, but rather it should spread by itself. So the Gemara says, the Bechira says, the flame should go up on its own accord. And you shouldn't need something else to encourage the flame. Since we see that that's considered a proper light, once the flame does not need extra things to light it, therefore also over here, regarding Hilchos Shabbos, when a person lights a fire on Friday afternoon, and the fire is burning so well that you don't need encouragement for it to burn better, therefore it is okay. Then you can let it. Then we're not chayshish that you might come to stoke it. What happens if you've got one very thick log of wood and you want to light it on Friday afternoon, keep it burning through Shabbos? How far does the fire have to spread in order that we're not chayshish that you come to stoke it? Most of its thickness. Most of the surrounding. That means, as long as the majority of the fire is, so the circumference of the wood is on flames, the fact that the inside is not on flames, it doesn't matter. In order to leave a log of wood on fire Friday afternoon, you shouldn't come to stoke it on Shabbos, the log has to have fire spread most of the circumference and most of its depth. And this is brought down in the Mishnah Berurah. Anybody remember what this word papa signifies?
Joining together, uniting two.
Papa over here is telling us that when you've got a machlokas, he's telling us to keep both. The Papa does this how many times in Shas?
10.
10. And therefore this is one of the 10 times. How many have we had so far?
4, 5, or maybe
this
6.
Is the fourth. I think this is the fourth.
We had 3.
Right, 3 in brachas. I don't remember there being.
There's 3 in brachas. One with a curse.
Well, there was one that we weren't sure about. No.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. So maybe this. No, there was 3. Yes, there was actually right.
3 definites and 1 maybe.
That's right. 3 definites, 1 maybe. So this is the 5th. Very good. The Bechira says ad kedei shishachitz eitz mimoleches uman, that the wood can't be used anymore for a craftsman. That means when the fire is so big in the wood that a craftsman can't use it, and that is most of its thickness. The fire should be caught on both sides. The pasuk there is a cheskel, and he's trying to describe the weakness of Klal Yisrael, how bad they are and how unreliable they are, etc. And he gives a mashal, a comparison. Like wood, that both ends the fire has consumed, and the inside is dried up. Can it be used for malacha? Of course not. So therefore, since it can't be used for malacha, therefore it's a raya that's since the pasuk uses that as a mashal, it's a raya that when 2 ends of the wood on flames, the rest of the wood will catch on, and once it catches on, we're not chayshish that you might need to stoke it or stay on light. That the says a pasuk. There's one of the most tragic pasukim there was. That what happened was there was Yirmiyahu Navi wrote Eicha. He wrote it before the Churban, and he read it out to Yehoiakim. Well, actually, Yehoiakim read it without. And what happened? What did Yehoiakim do? What did Yehoiakim do when you read Eicha?
Threw it in the flames.
Threw it in the flames. So he threw it in the flames. So the pasuk now the Gemara mentions, since we talk about fire, the Gemara mentions that pasuk. And the fire was burning in front of him. My och, what's the word? Och mean amarab achvona. This means wood from an avova tree. V'shvon amar eitzim shnidleku ba'achvona. Wood which has been lit inside in achvona ba'achva, wood which has been lit and burnt in a fireplace. where all the wood has caught on from each other. And since they caught on from each other, they all spread and they catch fire without each other's, they don't need any more help. Each one contributes to the fire to the other. Who would you like achvada? And it was found out that what did he want? What was he offering? He was offering avos. Since he was offering avos, therefore we see over here that avos is achvana, and that's like the first mandama that, like Rav, the achvana means avova tree. There are those who say it doesn't mean literally an avova tree because avova tree doesn't burn so well. It's referring to a kind tzaftzaf which is like the avova tree. Okay. Omar Avona Konim reads, Ein tzrichin roiv. You don't need that most of them should catch fire. Why not? Because reeds burn very, very well, like bamboo canes. Ogdom, but once you make it into a bundle, tzrichin roiv, you need roiv. Many times when you're building a fire, if you put too much wood tight together, the wood doesn't catch so well. So when you've ogged them, when you've bundled them together, you need much more. You need that the fire should spread and roiv, otherwise it's no good. Gavinim, date pips, which was very good fire. We'll see that they used to make good fires out of date pips. So ein tzrichin roiv. You don't need roiv because they burn very well. The nosam b'chaysolis. If you put it into baskets made out of lulav leaves, then what happens is they would burn not as well. Then tzrichin roiv. Maskelav chista adraba ipchum nistaba konim avadron. They spread around. Ogdom, if you tie them up together, limavadron. Don't scatter. Go in avadron. Not mechzos limavadron. It will let me like this. Whenever you've got wood, if you bundle it together, again, we must remember the basis of all this is one straightforward halacha. If the fire is going to spread by itself without any help, then we're not chayshish that you're going to stoke it, and therefore it's okay. If the fire is not going to spread well, then what's going to happen is you're going to stoke it, and then you're going to put away the Shabbos. The Gemara over here says like this. One man Doma says, the more tied it is, the worse it is, because when it's very squashed together, the fire doesn't spread so well, which is a scientific fact. You put a piece of wood, it's not scattered properly, you just squash a whole bundle of woods together, it won't burn well. The other man says, you're wrong. By having them scattered, then the fire doesn't spread so well from one to the other. And therefore, when they scatter around, the fire will go out. But when they're bundled together, then the fire won't spread out to go out. It's Menami, top of Chafam base, Omar of Kahana. Konim reads, Kain she'ogdon tzrichin roiv. You need roiv. Lo yogdon. If you don't do ein tzrichin roiv, you don't need roiv. But gavinim, if it's pips, tzrichin roiv, you need roiv. Nostam b'chisolos, put them into baskets. Ein tzrichin roiv, you don't need. That means this of Kahana is a what's the word? A compromise between the two. When it comes to reeds, he says that since in the end of the day, the more tight they are, the harder it is for the fire to spread. You need a roiv. But when it comes to pips, he says no. That when they're scattered, you need roiv, because since they're scattered, therefore the fire will not spread so well. There are 4 kinds of bonfires that need roiv. Shel zephus of tar, shel gofis of sulfur, shel gvina of cheese. Some people don't read the word gvina because the fire of gvina would probably say shel kiro, which is wax. The shel vav literally means a stain. It means either oil or wax which is dripped, anything which is drips, anything which melts. Also of straw and stubble. Stubble is something which is left over where the what's the word for it? When you from the field, what's left in the field after you've taken grain. If you look in Rashi again, by me it's the first of the thin lines. The English word is stubble. If you look at the word carefully, you can read the word stubble in the word. Stubble without the aleph. If they don't need roiv. If it's referring to silty, that means wood which has been cut into small pieces. Hashta pasila for a wick. Sorry. You have to light with roiv. Why? Because otherwise we're chayshash that you might come to stoke it. sorry, you have to light most of the wick that's come out. So to me, boya. And we talk about a thin, dry branch, which has like a kind of wool between the peel of the wood and the wood itself, and it burns very, very, very well. And therefore, that you don't need roy. Zaza is a kind of tree which burns extremely, extremely well. It is, it's like moss of some sort, and moss burns very, very well. Anybody got a good English translation who would like to say it, but this moss burns very, very, very well, and therefore, even if you don't have roiv, you're not chayshish that you might have to stoke it. Hadalach it says Shabbos should be zeicher to finish to this again. Hadalach it says Shabbos together better than having. I was speaking to Ray Whitler today, and he said to me he feels one very important point is that of course it's a b'diavad all of this, but there's also lechatchila. The lechatchila is that it's providing us opportunities to discover within ourselves strengths that we may never have developed had we never gone through these challenges. And therefore, we mustn't look at it just as a b'diavad. There's also something positive about all of this. And I must say, I'm sure every one of us has found ways to... Mazel tov. Now we need to bring out a bottle of whiskey. Where's the whiskey? Oh, what's the point of putting it there? You can't drink it by Zoom. Oh, everybody's got. You should have a l'chaim tonight. The state new yain the moy nefesh. You should give, well, the Pasuk says, you should always give wine to those who are sad. But Ben's already started. Very good. L'chaim. I don't have the whiskey in the house, but I don't. I'll make l'chaim maybe later. Oh, very good. L'chaim, mazel tov, and many, many more simchas. L'chaim. Anybody got...
He's just finished his tea. He's all right, and his chocolate raisins.
I've had my drink all night, don't worry.
Anybody got b'chori or has to fast on Pesach? It's not going to be funny. You got to finish the Masechta between now and Pesach.
I need to fast.
Shul, Rabbi Yehuda,
Yeah.
The
Shul sent out a message about fasting tomorrow half day,
Yeah.
and someone had another Pesach that it's Osa. Let me have a look. Someone had on his status as Moshe Brandsdorfer.
Or Mayor Brandsdorfer.
Moshe Brandsdorfer. He says Osa to fast tomorrow.
Everyone should do what your roof tells you in this town.
Agreed.
Who's your Rav?
Oh, I seem to listen.
Oh, you're out of the Chaim.
I'm the Rabbanim said they're minyanim on Shabbos. Everyone's very from to do it.
What was his basis of not fasting?
Because people need to have strength for the virus.
So 100%, that's what they all said, a disclaimer. They said that if you can't do it, you should not do it because it's pikuach nefesh.
But we don't know who's got the virus. You don't know when.
Listen, if you feel weak, it says break it. So
Firstly, how often in a day do you go till 12:30 without eating?
Yeah, it's not very long. It's like half a day.
12:15. Who eats before 12:15 on an average day anyway?
A coffee, definitely.
Yeah, don't take the letter at face value. You're always going to have those type of people. If Chaim Kanievsky wrote this letter saying you should fast, I don't think he's, I think he's a bit of the right person to say it, and we should listen to him. If someone wants to argue with him, then.
What about what you said? Should have been on it. People also don't listen.
Yehuda, we have to welcome 2 new members.
Oh, who are the 2 new members? Like Yossi Cohen, I can see. Nice to meet you.
Hi.
ATH and Avram Svi Hibbot. ATH.
There's another person.
Hi, Avram.
Hello, Yossi.
ATH. Can you see an ATH?
Yeah, I can see. Is that
Avram Svi Hibbot.
Sully came with us to Lublin.
Your son came with as well, no?
No.
What's your surname, Sully? What? Sorry?
Brolchinsky.
You can spell it, you get a medal.
Listen, are you a friend of Yankees? No.
Go on.
That's my brother. Very good. Anyway, we're a bit ahead. It's quite it's nice to be further ahead. As there's 3 new members then. Wait a second. We've got Avonsi Hibbert,
There's Tolly Cope as well. I don't know where he is tonight.
He said he's not on because he's a bit
Yossi
behind.
Cope.
He wants to
Where
catch
do you live,
up.
Yossi?
He told me so.
God, see, the lights and it's keeping track of everything. You realize all this is going on YouTube. Forevermore, people can watch this. Okay, very good. I wish you all a very good night. Okay, it's Lacha with everything. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Shkoyach, it's Lacha. Voor Shlim, everyone.
Mazel tov, mazel tov.
Shkoyach.
What is she?
Sure.
I don't
understand.
Where's this Benny gone?
Where's you sorted? Yeah, you take over the.
Where's what?
Oh, you already done it.
Has Benny gone?
Sure, there's a lot of Rabbanim, different Rabbanim said a lot of different things.
None of them are arguing.